So I just finished the first week of my last year in college. So let's talk about the last movie that I saw this summer, which, oh shit! So, if the front-facing camera looks a little weird, it's because, fuck me. Well, what I was going to say was the movie that I saw earlier this month was Bloodfest. So Bloodfest is a horror comedy movie written and directed by Owen Egerton, produced by Rooster Teeth, starring Robbie Kay, Seychelle Gabriel, Jacob Batalon, and Barbara Dunkelman. It is about a horror fanatic, Dax, played by Robbie Kay, and he and his friends are going to this convention called Bloodfest. And at Bloodfest, they quickly find out that it is not a normal convention. The people who have put on this show are just gonna kill everybody who shows up. And the main characters have to deal with that, and they have to try to escape. And comedy/horror ensues. So what do I think of Bloodfest? I've seen the movie twice, and I think the movie's really fun. I wouldn't say it's a movie that's trying to be exceptional or perfect, but it's trying to be fun. It's trying to pay an homage to the genre that it is sort of parodying, and it's trying to be something that you can watch at a party, maybe like a Halloween party, with a bunch of friends. So I think the movie's a lot of fun to watch, and there's a lot of great moments throughout the movie, but it's not the most perfect thing that's ever come out. So first and foremost, this movie centers around this theme of meta movie/meta comedy around like the horror genre. And by that I mean it's a horror movie about horror movies. And since it can do that, it's sort of parodying those horror movies and turning a movie that's supposed to be like horrific into a fun and funny time. And I think it really succeeds at doing this for the most part. And by doing this, it allows the movie to use these horror tropes that are completely overdone and completely ridiculous, and for a normal movie, I would count points against it if it used these tropes. But since it's a movie that's about horror movies, it sort of gets a pass, I would say, to use these tropes, because if you're not gonna use the tropes, then you're not really doing a good job of replicating these horror movies. So there's a line in the movie that's like, if you follow the rules, then maybe you might survive. So it's setting up that there are these rules that horror movies have that are gonna show up within this movie. And that's basically saying, we're gonna use horror tropes and we're gonna make a movie about them. And so since they exist throughout the movie, they're not bad things because they're a part of the movie. You could argue that they should have been done in a way that made them unique and different instead of just like using them, which at points it sometimes does, like just use a trope. But I think that comes down to like your subjective viewing of the movie. At that point, the tropes are there for the movie, and whether or not you like them doesn't mean the movie's bad. It just means you don't like movies that are about movies, if that makes sense.
Neighbors in Chick-fil-A, my name is Parker. What's your name?
I'm Simon. I have a coupon for a free Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich.
Total is $11.71. Alright, so that brought it down to $7.56.
Alright, thank you.
Pleasure. Have a good day.
You too. So this meta horror genre-ish theme, I would say has been done before and has been done better in movies like Cabin in the Woods. But I don't think this movie is the worst version of it. I think it's good, and I think it's fun, and I think that's all it was trying to be. So more things that I really liked about this movie were some of the technical aspects. I would say the cinematography was really great. There are a lot of scenes where like there's fog rolling in and the camera does really cool, interesting things. It's not like perfect all the way through. They do at some points revert back to the very basic shots and everything. but it's not void of really creative and really interesting to look at shots and compositions. So I really enjoyed that. I would also say the production and set design were fantastic. Marcus Lepore did an amazing job of putting a world together that felt real and felt stylized, as well as the practical effects. Like, not a lot of horror or just any movies nowadays use practical effects more than computer generated effects. And I really appreciate that as a love letter to horror, it's using fake blood and it's using prosthetics and all these things that are for the genre. So to see that in this movie was really touching. And I don't know if this is going to be universal for a lot of people, but I really liked the music in this movie. The music choices were these dubsteppy songs, and it's not that those songs are great songs, but I think they really work for this movie because you think of those sounds, they're loud, they're a little obnoxious, and when you think of this fan base that is all about these horror movies, you sort of think of like kind of loud and obnoxious people. I mean that as a compliment, I swear. So the music really fit the genre and the tone that the movie was going for. So I also really liked how the comedy worked in this movie, which is kind of important considering that it's a comedy. Compared to other movies that Rooster Teeth has made, aka Laser Team, I would say this movie is leagues ahead of that. It's because this movie, the comedy in it, and this is a problem that Laser Team had, and a problem that a lot of like mainstream comedies have, is that it's not sacrificing the story for the sake of the comedy, if that makes sense. What I mean by that is the movie doesn't come to a grinding halt just to tell a joke. So many movies that call themselves comedies nowadays, especially like the really popular ones, that's what the comedy is in that movie. It's comedians making movies, and then they just tell jokes throughout the movie, and it has nothing really to do with the story, and it doesn't really get integrated into the story at all, besides from them just telling jokes as their characters. But this movie, the comedy, it flowed with the movie, and that doesn't mean that like every line is a laugh out loud moment. It means that the movie is endearing and the comedy isn't obnoxious. I'm trying to make sure you guys don't see anything like my pin or anything. To get where?
Scott Campus.
Scott Campus. This way to 67th, and then take a right on 67th.
Yeah.
That'll take you to the Scott like dorms and everything.
Okay.
And yeah, just
Yeah, that's
past,
true.
like,
I know
Pine.
how to do. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are you kidding me? So the last thing that I really enjoyed about this movie was that it had a lot of heart. And that kind of sounds soft, but I really liked that. It looked like it was a movie that was a lot of fun to work on, and you kind of enjoy when you can tell that about a movie, because movies that look like they were like a horror to get through just to make the movie really good, which, you know, I appreciate and I am okay with. It's nice to see movies that look like they were fun to make, so that you know that these people are having fun with their jobs. So it had a fun spirit, and it had a lot of heart, and that has nothing really to do with how the quality of the movie came out, but it was nice to know that it was there. Now, like I said, this movie isn't flawless, and I would say that the strengths of this movie are more noticeable than the weaknesses, but the weaknesses are there. First and foremost, I thought a lot of the Rooster Teeth affiliated actors could have been better. I'll just put it that way. And I mean more so the cameos throughout the movie. And it's this problem that Rooster Teeth has with their movies that they make, is that the people that they get from their own company to be actors know that the audience that they're catering to are Rooster Teeth fans. And because they know that they're Rooster Teeth fans, they know that they're cameos, and that affects their performance. It's like they're trying to be wink wink nudge nudge with their how they portray themselves, when it's really like all the fans need is to see your face. They don't need you to pretend like, oh, look, it's me, I'm in the movie. You can be in the movie and fans will be like, look, it's that person. But you can also give a strong performance on top of that, and people won't be like, he wasn't what I expected, and I don't like that. People will be like, wow, look, it's that person, and they did a really good job. So I just, for the future, if anybody from RT sees this, which I don't know if they will, but for the future, don't do that. That's all I'm gonna say. And then also, there was a child actor at the beginning of this movie, and he was horrible. He was absolutely horrible. And, you know, I don't know if that's somebody's kid, but sorry, somebody, that wasn't a good job at all. So, something else about this movie that I don't think really worked all that well was the dialogue at points. Now, like I said, the dialogue that's based on movie tropes was okay. There were times where it was a little overbearing, but mostly what I'm talking about are the scenes like the Flynn Rider bit that they did. There's a point in the movie where Zachary Levi shows up, and it's this whole bit between her and Barbara about how she only knows him from Tangled, and so she calls him Flynn Rider the whole time. And the way that was executed didn't really work for me. And I don't know if it's because of the blocking in the scene, how they're just walking down a hallway, or if it's because of the way that like Barbara's lines were written, but it just seemed very clunky and just bad. Like it was just sort of like, this isn't funny, and it's going on for way too long, and it should probably not have been in the movie. Maybe you could have done it in a different way that would have worked better, but the way that they didn't work, I would say. Also, at points like Sam, Seychelle Gabriel's character, Sam, she weirdly has like the last line in the scene for several scenes where like they're about to go somewhere, and then she'll say something kind of like inspirational or, I don't know, like foreshadowy, and it's like, why does she have these lines, and why is she saying them right now? Nobody asked her a question or anything. She's just saying like this really weird cheesy line, and like maybe that falls into the tropes, but I don't really know. It just didn't really seem all that natural or good to me. Kind of tying into this whole blocking issue that I had with the Zachary Levi scene, there were other moments throughout the movie where the choreography was just really awkward and weird, and it was like they needed this character to stand in this spot so that they could be killed here, but they didn't really have a good way to make them get to that area, so it's like they would stop moving, and it's like, well, why did you stop? You could have avoided being killed right now, but you know, the plot needed them to die, so it's like they needed to stop in that spot, so it doesn't seem natural. And then there are other times where it's like I'm thinking of the scene where Barbara's character is getting the key card from Nicholas Rutherford's character, Lenjamin, and she just sort of grabs it, and then she turns around, stands in one spot, and is like, I got it. And the way that looked was really amateur and just really clunky and really stiff, and it didn't really feel great, and it was kind of awkward to watch. Listen, I don't care if this makes me a bad gay person. Chick-fil-A is good. So I kind of mentioned earlier that I really liked the production design and the practical effects, but there were moments in this movie that used CG blood, and CG blood is like one of the worst things that you can do in any movie, I would say, especially when it doesn't look good because you don't have the talent or the money to make it look good. So it's like you've weighed so heavily on your practical effects and your like fake blood that you put on the characters. Why are there moments, and this is gonna be like spoilery, why are there moments like when Barbara's neck gets bit by the zombies that just like blood squirts out and it looks horrible? It's like you used the practical effects already. Why are you now using the CG blood that looks so bad? And then also there were some props that just looked really bad. I think the clown weapons were really done in a really poor way because they looked like they were styrofoam by the way that the actors carried them and just the way that they like were like, I don't know, toyish. And like, you know, you're going for that effect, but for killer clowns, you want a toyish style with like sharp blades, and like the axe that the one guy had just looked like a giant toy, and then like he's using it to cut people. It's like, how is that cutting them? That's like not sharp at all. And it looks like it's styrofoam. So coming down to the end of the movie, there's this part where Owen Edgerton's character, who's like the mastermind of this whole operation, activates the pulse, and it's basically like their wristbands tighten around them and make them go like crazy via this like pulse that runs through their body or whatever. And you know what, that's fine, but like it breaks its own rules a couple of times. What I'm talking about is like, it shows that the bracelet, when they're demonstrating it, it goes tight, and then like that's what makes them go crazy. But later in the movie, when Sam, she's wearing her bracelet and she goes crazy, when they take her bracelet off, it's like loose and hanging around her arm, and he just like pulls it off, and then she's fine. But I thought you established that the bracelet goes tight, so to get it off you would have to like cut it or something. So what the heck? Like, that shouldn't have worked, so she should have still been crazy, and she might have killed you at that point, because like, if that's how you solve the movie, then I'm assuming that you didn't have a real way to solve this issue, and that's a bad plot problem. And then also, the way that she reacts to the pulse, and the way that like the people who are affected by the pulse reacts, is kind of like, it doesn't make sense. So she goes crazy, and she's basically like a fast zombie, but what's her goal? Is she trying to eat him? Is she just trying to like choke him? Because like there's a point where she has him pinned down, and she's basically just like doing this. She's like but it's like, is that really all the pulse does? I thought it was supposed to like, you know, make this person crazy and like try to kill this person, but like she's just fighting him in a really bad way, and it's like, is that what the pulse does? Like, I need more explanation, or I need this to be more threatening, because, you know, if that's it, then like, okay, I guess that's fine. You're kind of weird, but you know, whatever. So the last thing that I didn't like about this movie was the main villain, which was like the twist and like revealed at the ending, you know? His inconsistencies with his character. So I'm gonna spoil it because, you know, I'm gonna spoil it. It's Dax's father who puts on this whole show because Horror killed his wife, Dax's mother, which was at the beginning of the movie. And so he wants to put an end to horror because he thinks it's horrible for people. So I understand his motivation, and I understand him coming to this idea where like you make this blood fest where it's celebrating horror, and then it goes horribly wrong, so everybody watching is like, we shouldn't celebrate horror, let's get rid of horror. That all makes sense. What doesn't make sense is his attitude at the end of the movie, where he's just like, okay, let's activate the pulse because I want to see how it does. And he's like a little bloodthirsty. It's like, your character hates this stuff. He is passionately against it to the point where he's willing to kill hundreds of people. How can he, by the end of the movie, be sucked into it? That's like a huge character flaw. You can't tell me he's this way and then show me he's this other way, because now I don't believe the character, and now I don't care about whether or not he succeeds. And I should care about that because he's like your main villain. So that was bad. The way how he was like eager to see it really didn't work for me, and really I don't think works for the movie. So, in conclusion, Bloodfest was a really fun movie. There's a lot of gore, so if you like that and you like the horror genre, I think you'll really like this movie. It's not perfect, and it's not exceptional, but I think it works, and it achieves what it set out to do, and it's just like a great summer movie, or a movie that you can put on at a party with friends and just have a good time watching it. I hope you enjoyed my review. If you disagreed with anything that I said, let me know in the comments. I'd love talking about movies with other people. So I want to start doing discussions in the comments of my videos. I'm not gonna leave an out of 10 rating at the end of this video. I'm gonna stop doing that because I've learned from my first 2 videos that if you give it a number out of 10, that means something different to everybody. No matter how many times you explain what it means to you, it means something different to everybody, and so it's more confusing than it is helpful. But if you really want to see what I rated it out of 10, just follow me on Instagram. I'll put my out of 10 rating for this movie up on my Instagram story when this video goes up. But in the future, it'll just be like when I see a movie. So I'll see a movie and then I'll take a picture of the ticket of the theater and I'll put it up on my stories. But yeah. I enjoyed Bloodfest. I think most people would enjoy Bloodfest. And I'm gonna finish my Chick-fil-A. So, get out of here. What are you doing? Leave.